Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me introduce myself. My name's Paul Richer. I run a management consultancy called Genesys, and we advise travel companies on technology in the travel industry. If you've got any technological problems, then excuse, that's my seat. Thank you very much. You stand up for a minute and your seat gets taken. I don't know. Outrageous. But it's so wonderful you've all come this morning. Thank you very much that you're all having to search for seats. So your job is to save my seat. Okay, thank you. And so I've put together a series of seminars today called the Genesys Sessions. And our first subject that we're tackling today is our Search Engine Update 2013. We'll be talking about mobile today here. We'll be talking about social media, content. I'll talk about latest technology later on, but still it seems to be the search engines that drive so much business to our websites, to our companies, that's really very important to know how to get the most from them. So I've lined up three great speakers who are going to cover the subject, and sitting nearest to me is Andy Jones. He's head of search account management at Yahoo, the not-to-be-forgotten search engine. We all think a lot about Google as being the only search engine, but Andy, that's not true, I believe. But next to him, sitting in the middle there, is Nate Bucholz. He's industry head of travel at Google. And then, last but not least, furthest away from me is Sebastien Gibergues. He's director leisure and online travel at Amadeus IT Group, and will actually maybe take a bit of a B2B flavor on the subject. So our first speaker today is Andy. And the lovely thing is, it's his birthday today. So, Andy, happy birthday, and I'll try to only ask you nice, kind questions. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Andy.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? That's true, by the way. It is actually my birthday today. So, thank you all for coming to my party. Today, in my 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about an exciting journey that we are beginning to embark on, both individually for Yahoo, but also for us as an industry, and specifically the search marketplace. It's a journey where we don't quite know the destination, but we know it's going to be exciting, especially for those of you like me who have lived, breathed, and loved the search marketplace for over a decade now. What we'll be looking at is the way we buy paid search and how this model is beginning to influence an important part of the display market. We know the value that paid search has driven for the travel industry since its inception. Now, opportunities are starting to develop within online display advertising, where many of the best practices the travel industry has learned from search can be applied. The start of this journey is found in the evolution of the digital economy. First came display, then came search. However, search advertising spend now drives a far higher share of media spend than display, especially with regards to the travel industry. As we're all aware, search is such an effective channel for driving conversions. In truth, the search and display markets, the people who work in them, and the skills they have remained, to all intents and purposes, separate. Search was for a different place in the purchase funnel, that the declared intent of search was the only real data signal that mattered, and the big three search engines provided the scale required to execute on this. As far as search goes, there's some well-established methods and products to drive additional clicks for the travel market. The majority of the people in the room will be familiar with site links, familiar with local extensions, and call metering. However, it's true to say the lines between search and display are beginning to blur. They're both digital, after all. They're very often integrated and very often collaborated. As a media player who operates in this space, we know all too well the symbiotic relationship they have. The impact of display on driving search is clear. At Yahoo, our Rich Ads product, which integrates video and imagery into the search results page, ties offline creative into the PPC world. Over the past 18 months, it's the immersion of what is heralded as a new form of advertising, native advertising. The likes of Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter have thrust this new buzzword into the industry, and it has pushed the worlds of display and search together like never before. And at Yahoo, we are responding to this change. We've already reorganized the way we sell. No longer do we approach things by products or by search and display, but by solutions orientated around clients. And now we are starting to explore the world of native advertising. And what we're finding is our search advertisers are at the forefront of this new frontier. So first things first, it's important to understand what is meant by native advertising. Like most new things in the ever-changing digital ecosystem, there are a lot of descriptions, some contradictory, others confusing. I always think, as with most questions of fact, Wikipedia tends to have the best indication of a consensus. Sort of. This is what Wikipedia have to say about native advertising. Native advertising is a web advertising method in which the advertiser attempts to gain attention by providing valuable content in the context of the user's experience. Now, that should sound familiar to lots of people who have worked with search marketing. Search marketing world kind of figured this out a long time ago. We've inhabited this concept for the past decade or more. And there is an important point to make here. Native at its heart operates on a spectrum of execution, from search, that we all know at one end of the spectrum, right through to native advertising, as controversially unveiled by the Washington Post and the Atlantic. Controversial, as these well-respected traditional print operations were seeming to be breaking the division between editorial and advertising. However, it is the middle of this spectrum where arguably the sweet spot for native sits. This space is occupied by some of the most recognizable names in social media. This is where we see an interesting meeting point, where content and advertising can come together for the benefit of both the user and the advertiser. Why does this matter? The reason it works for both the user and the advertiser is search is influencing the digital ad community, that the content and the ad needs to be treated just the same. Get native right, as this piece of research indicates, the user will spend practically the same amount of time engaging with the advertising as they will with the content. If you can meet the advert and the content and treat those two in the same, then success is, of course, inevitable. At Yahoo, we're already seeing the harsh lines separating content and advertising starting to soften and blur. For every piece of content on Yahoo, like articles, photos, and videos, we imagine a complementary or twin experience with our advertisers' content. These will be the next generation of native ads, giving advertisers more organic and engaging ways to reach their consumers. When our users look at Yahoo streams, they want content that will make them smarter, entertain them, and provide them new ideas to share with friends. These new native ads will allow brands to educate, entertain, and spark a conversation in the same way as our content does. And the new Yahoo homepage, about to be released in the UK, is personalized for each user. We're studying the data that we have available to us and ensuring that content is more relevant to our users so they spend less time clicking around and more time consuming. With all of our personalization technologies, no two pages will be alike. Now, inside that stream of content come what we have termed at Yahoo stream ads, and stream ads at scale. Like search, they will be fully self-serve for all clients in a biddable marketplace, something that search advertisers like yourselves will be very familiar with. The first iteration of stream ads, now running in the US across the homepage and Yahoo Mail, soon to be rolled out across all other channels. Currently, stream ads have the opportunity to reach 120 million US consumers a month, delivering the all-important scale that goes along with the personalization. And what we're seeing in terms of results, well, it's a pretty impressive start. Stream ads, as I mentioned, are biddable, highly targeted. You can reach the right user at the right time. Meanwhile, they are delivering click-through rate that is 7 times greater than standard display advertising. And importantly, like search, native ads are easily portable across multiple devices. No flash or format issues. Simple and easy to execute. Native is the way publishers and advertisers can accelerate the move into the all-important mobile space. Now, like all advertising, native will evolve. Formats will be different across the relevant platforms. Yahoo's recent acquisition of Tumblr has a massive user audience, covering more edgy topics that complement the current Yahoo offering. The native experience undoubtedly suits this environment. More importantly, it will also provide you, as travel clients, another channel in which to engage with your target audience. Now, when thinking about native creative, as search practitioners, we need to adapt our best practices. We've touched upon the similarities, they've been covered already, but clearly the world of native is different. Hits the consumer at different stage in the purchase funnel, so we need to change the way we do things creatively. It's important we think like an editor, not a search marketeer. The end user seeks benefits, not features. In your creative, ask a question, solve a problem, empower the user. Don't try too hard. Avoid slogans or ad copy. Avoid unnecessary punctuation. Like search, make the content page relevant to the title. And finally, like the example we have just seen on the previous slide, think imagery, not words. Don't use logos, ads, or product shots. Use compelling, click-driving images. So when we think back about the worlds of display and search, it is not necessarily a world of separation, a world of apples and oranges, but a world of solutions, where native may just be the bridge between the two, bringing search advertisers in the travel industry a wider canvas and a larger audience to play with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy, for that. And I forgot to mention to you all, especially those who are busy taking notes there, that the speakers have said that we can put their presentations online after the seminar today. Take a while to do it. So if you'd like copies of the presentations, just leave your business card at the door on the way out. So you can all relax and watch now. So our next presenter is from everybody's favorite search engine. Let's welcome Nate from Google.
The fruit in Andy's presentation. That was going to be my big intro. Is it available now? Oh, look, I've broken the thing. That was going to be my big intro joke. The fruit and these mics. Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me now? Testing. No. I can use this. Hello? There we go. God, I had such a good joke to start with. It was about the fruit and the mic, and it made me feel like I should be showing you how to chop vegetables at Westfield Center. I got some laughs. All right, so the perfect search engine. This is a quote that Larry Page said quite a long time ago about understanding exactly what you need and giving you just the information when you want it. And we haven't gotten there yet, but search is evolving, and the search engines are evolving. And what I'm talking about today is a bit how Google's evolving, and then also how marketing and search marketing should evolve as well. And the way that I'm seeing it is kind of into 3 eras or buckets. And the first one is around really being tool focused. So you understand AdWords, you understand all the tools that are available to you, so you're as efficient as you can be with your search marketing. And those tools will evolve a bit, and they are, and you get a bit better and a bit more efficient. And then the middle part is really focusing more on the customer. And I've been speaking about this for, I think this is my 4th World Travel Market now, where you think about the customer journey, and most of the travel presentations you'll see here will have some form or another of the researching, the dreaming, the researching, the booking, experiencing, etc. And the point of that is just thinking a bit more about the customer and not so much the tools, and what they're thinking about, and then tailoring your message and offering the right product to them. And as you move into this 3rd stage, we're not really there yet. Google's dabbling, and you should too. But it's where you take more signals and more context. If you think of things like enhanced campaigns, where you take into time of day into account and location, these sorts of things, you can start to really give a more tailored message and maybe even predict and offer something to the customer before they know that they even want it. These aren't stages that you do one after another and leave one behind. They're all kind of part of the same picture. So you should be working in all 3. So you still want to have the right keyword and the right ad text. The middle stage, I think, is really about the data on your website and in your search campaigns, the right tagging and attribution models and those sorts of things. And then the last one, like I said, is around the context. It may seem fairly obvious, especially to the people that do search, that of course you need to tailor your message to the customer. But there really is a product focus. I feel like a lot of companies, big companies, spend a lot of money, and they really focus on the search team. And then there's a display team over here. They might be in different agencies, and there's the offline guys. And I feel like the big picture is sometimes lost, and that's focusing on the customer. So if you think about the basics, you got the user intent, which is a query coming in, the keyword, because you've been working hard to build out your keyword set, and then you show them the right ad. And this is constantly changing because the keywords change. So we have, here's an ad. I've got an example of booking a trip to Bali throughout the presentation. And you could put up the right ad. It has the site links, it has the seller ratings and that sort of thing. But people are not always going to type in Bali holiday. And so we have things like keyword tools, which will help you look now at the top searches related to that, or the rising searches, so you can catch some trends. And you can look at competition levels and what your CPC might be and these sorts of things. So it's very good, it's evolving. But like I said, it's evolving because people type in things differently. In fact, we see about 15% of searches every week that we've never seen before at Google. And some of these are different ways that people are looking for something to purchase, a trip to Bali. A lot of them are whatever the flavor of the week is, what the Fox say. I have to be careful to enunciate that. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But we'll get queries like that, so there's always whatever the topic is, but it's also how people search. Because as search engines are getting better, then we're able to take questions that are a bit more semantic. So you could say something like, what's the population of Bali? And we have something that we call direct answers, which is to say, we know what you want, and we're just going to give you that instead of a lot of links. We know that it's 4.22 million. We know that that's what you're asking for, so we'll provide it. You could search for something like your flight and just put in your flight number, and it'll show you whether it's on time, or if you're picking someone up from the airport, you see if it's en route, whatever it might be. And you could think semantically, what's the weather like in Bali this week? And we just show you the answer. This isn't all brand new, but there's always somebody in the crowd who's like, and they tell their mom, and mom's impressed at least. There are a lot of these related to travel. I saw an article researching for this presentation that said 101 direct answers for Google. And there are things like, who's the author of a certain book, or who's married to who? And then there's really, really vital questions that we're also answering. Have you guys heard of the 6 degrees of separation? It's a theory. There are only like six degrees of separation between any 2 human beings. More importantly than that, Google strived to do what was really difficult, and that's to answer, what's your bacon number? Does anyone know what the bacon number is? It's the degree of separation between Kevin Bacon and anyone else in Hollywood. And these are important questions, right? And I thought, Benedict Cumberbatch, like, there's no more British name out there as far as I know, and here we are in Britain. So anyone want to hazard a guess? The bacon number for Benedict Cumberbatch? 4, 3, 2. My God, they're closely related. Look at this. Gary Oldman, Kevin Bacon, they're in Criminal Law, and then Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Back to Bali. So if you're showing the best pictures of Bali, it's not going to be a text response that's the best thing to get. It's going to be something related to photos, obviously, and it could be videos. And the reason I put this up is because it's cold and it's nice to look at these pictures, but also to show that there's got to be different responses, and search engines are evolving to provide this. So if you look at things to do in Indonesia, you have something that we call the local carousel. And that's because we identify that people searching for this type of thing are probably in the exploratory, dreaming stage, whatever you want to call it, and they want something a bit more topical before they narrow down their answers. And it's the same thing that we'll put in Hotel Finder that we're testing, which is to say that people want to take a look at the room, maybe the exterior of the hotel, and then they start to narrow down what they're looking at. And we know that these kind of queries get more interesting with geo-focused queries, and even more so when you talk about mobile. And these are a couple of kind of wild stats. The UK is the #1 per capita user of mobile data in the world. I didn't know that. Also, to the detriment of all of our personal relationships, we look at mobile phones 150 times a day, apparently. Probably true. Another stat is that 40% of the watch time in the UK on YouTube is off of a mobile device. So mobile is big. I think we've been saying it for about a decade now, but I think we all accept it at this point. And if you think about the commercial implications of that, you have to realize how people use their phones when making purchases. And this is as we step into this kind of consumer era and really looking at the data and the signals that you can get. Most people will switch between devices when they're making an online purchase. So they might start somewhere and finish somewhere else, and we have to understand this. And if you think just for the travel industry, for example, of those who are making a travel purchase online, a quarter of them will start on a smartphone. Hold on, there we go. I was supposed to build it up, a lot of anticipation. Those who started will make a purchase on the smartphone 10% of the time, but they may have started on the smartphone and then they'll go on to the desktop or the tablet, or they'll go offline and make a call. The reason I point this out is because if you're just doing something like last click attribution, or just looking at the conversions that come off your mobile device, you'll probably see that it's not that important. Whereas if you look at the data and you understand the bigger picture, you'll know that it's an influencing point, and you need to allocate your budgets and your resources accordingly. You could even look more simplistically at areas where you need to understand the consumer path, just on desktop queries alone, for example. We see that people that are going to make a travel purchase, most of the time will start with a non-brand query, and a small portion will make a brand query. And if you look at the second query after that, in the same search session, those who made a brand query will then kind of split off, and half of them more or less will do a non-brand and half will do a brand. It's not so much these data points that you need to focus on, but you need to know what's happening for your own business, for your own search accounts. If you don't, then you don't really understand the value of any kind of type of query. Again, I work with big advertisers spending lots of money who will do things like have their CMO go, these brand search conversion rates are damn good. We're going to turn off generics and we're just going to throw it in brand. And they miss the whole picture of these 83% that are starting with something else. And pretty soon your stream of revenue from search would dry up. So you need, again, to look at the big picture. And when you start looking at the big picture and understanding, that's where Google has a lot of tools, all of them free unless you go to the premium type products. Google Tag Manager would help you manage your tags and deploy them a bit more efficiently, much to the delight, hopefully, of your website guys that own it. That allows you to do things like remarketing and understand the users a bit better. You can look at multi-channel funnels for things like that conversion path that I just showed, which kind of says, right, people start here, they might go over here, and then here's how they eventually come to make a conversion. Or universal analytics, where you can even now plug in things like footfall to store or calls to your call center, and you can wrap them back into your analytics package, so you really get an idea of everything that has an impact and where the money's starting to come in. And again, make better decisions based off that. But the predictive era is really about the context. And so if you're thinking about the trip to Bali again, you've got the guy who's, I think, fairly obviously going to look at a flight, London to Bali, and that makes sense. Someone else is probably going to be checking the weather. Again, that might be an area where you realize people do that. You start advertising on these kinds of terms, maybe. You've got somebody who's going to book a hotel, and then you start to think of other examples, like someone's going to be buying swimsuits, because if we live in London, we probably never put ourselves in a swimsuit, being as pasty as we are, but if you're going to Bali, you're probably going to want to buy a swimsuit. And if you start thinking about how people think about these trips and use all this data, all of a sudden you think, well, if I sell flights and hotels, and somebody on my site just booked a trip to Bali flying, then I should probably use something like we have remarketing lists for search ads, which means that next time someone's looking for a hotel and you recognize that they're the same person that's been on your flights page, you're going to boost up your bid because these people are committed. They've already dropped the money on the flight. And Google's thinking about that too, the data signals that we get in to try to improve the customer experience and offer something a bit better. So if you think about maps right now, if you type in London to Bali, there is a hell of a road trip available to you, folks, if you want to take it. It's about 270 hours, 10,000 miles driving. You take something like a right, no, it's a left in Iran and a right in Myanmar. With an American passport, probably not going to be that fun. But it would be interesting, but most people aren't going to do this. And so now with the new maps, we're starting to incorporate Google flight search data in there. So we recognized, right, this is a long-ass trip. You're going to fly, let's be honest. And so you pop in things like, here are the flights that are available, here's how long they take, and here's how much it's going to cost. And when you start typing in the geographic qualifications, again, it gets interesting, but mobile, I think, is really where it's at when you're thinking about predictive. So if you look at Google now, it's gotten better. It was interesting to start with, but it was kind of a novelty. Even over the last couple of months, I've realized it's gotten more useful for me. We're working with different partners. For example, Hotels.com. When they send out a confirmation email that you've booked a hotel, there's some code in there, and Google now can recognize it. So the day that you're checking into your hotel, we'll pop up a card that says, hey, you're in Bali. We know you're checking in with this hotel today, so just so you need it, here are the directions. Or if you land in another country than you normally are, we know that you probably want to know conversion rates, so we'll pop that up, and you might want to know how to say hello in a local language. There's other interesting things, like you see these photo spots nearby. If we know where a photo is taken by geotagging it, and we know there's a lot of them uploaded and they're similar, then we know that's interesting. So you could say, look, down the road is a great beach, apparently, because a lot of people have taken this picture. I was visiting my in-laws in a medium town in western Ukraine, but not a tourism center by any means. And I actually discovered a new church. I had lived there for 2 years and I didn't know about this place because I was just flipping through Google Now, seeing what they had to offer. And it said, right nearby, there's an interesting church. You might want to go. So that's what is, I think, the next era that we're just starting to get into. It's the right message and the right information to the right person and the right product, all that kind of stuff. And not only at the right time, but maybe actually a little bit before they realized they needed it. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you very much, Nate. Some good food for thought there. And now let's welcome our third speaker. Let's welcome Sebastien from Amadeus.
Thank you. And good morning. I will give a slightly different angle to the discussion this morning. Obviously, Amadeus is not a B2C company, right? We're a B2B technology provider for you guys, for the travel industry. And we all know, obviously, we've seen the great vision that both Yahoo and Google have for online travel search and advertising. However, we all know in the travel space that a travel product is a fairly complex piece of product, right? You need to put this ad at the right time in the right place with the right content and the right price is actually a fairly complex process. And obviously what we try to do at Amadeus, working with you behind the scenes, is to build the right technology that will enable those ads to be as relevant as possible in the context that is set for this specific ad. And search technology is really at the core of the online travel world, and definitely also both on the advertising side and also on the conversion side to make sure that you actually then convert the sale from the leads, the great leads you've generated on your marketing channels. And for the past 10 years, we've been building what we called low-fare search technology, which is really the ability in one query to return, a good set, typically of flights for a flight request that you then used to power online travel search. However, as we will see, this is, and actually this has led to the rise of big online players, typically the online travel agencies, a lot around the flight product. It also, as a byproduct, created the growth and created those new players, the meta search player, which, there was fairly comparable sets of results between the different travel sites. So it was, fairly easy to aggregate these results into, let's say, a comparison and shop and compare page. So this is pretty much the first 10 years of online travel. Now, what we see, and this is really what I want to share with you today, is that there's a few trends that are really going to start disrupting really the core of online travel business. The first one is really around pressure on the online travel model as such. It comes from the end consumers, and we'll see that a bit later. also comes from the providers, right? We now see more and more, let's say, interesting discussion between the retailers and the suppliers, airline, hotels. Really, with those suppliers, try to claim a better, different way to differentiate their products along the travel supply chain, all the way to your sites, or even all the way to those search result pages. And we also see a bit just an important part of this shift is let's say the traditional online travel agency really built around single components, flight and hotel, start to also see the competition of more traditional tour operators selling complete packages, but now start to get fairly aggressively online with new technology for package search that start to disrupt as well the traditional, let's say, established products you find online in travel. The second big disruptive trend is what I call technology explosion, because there are so many pieces, obviously, to this trend. One that we saw already is obviously clearly all of the multi-channel that have popped up here and there, both on the mobile and the social channels. This is very disruptive as it creates brand new channels to reach out to consumers. But at the same time, right behind the scenes to power those new channels, we've seen the emergence, obviously, of new search technology. And typically, we talk now about a lot of smart caching technology with the ability to deliver instant results, which is really part of this new paradigm that we'll talk about in a minute. But also, obviously, the rise of big data, allowing us to really take some collective intelligence and to re-inject this information into our search algorithm to make them more relevant and to really try to find the right product for the right customer. And finally, and again, I think you guys are definitely with what the guys from Yahoo and Google presented on the end consumer side. This is clearly where there's a big shift in terms of what the customers expect. We saw two big trends. One is the personalization and the contextualization. So clearly, that has to be taken into account into the technology that we build. And second as well is the ubiquity of the traveler experience, starting from a mobile device to start an inspiration or a generic search, and then into home to start planning a trip, and then possibly even going out to calling someone to confirm the reservation. So those three trends really are disrupting this first cycle, let's say, of online travel evolution for the past 10 years. It also means that we need to bring in new technology to power this new cycle of online travel. And this is a bit what we've done. And for me, this is a very interesting example of that paradigm shift. So we did actually a year ago first experiment. I talked about this low-fare search, traditional low-fare search technology that delivers hundreds of results when you can provide an origin, a date, and a destination. Well, we started playing since last year with new concept. What about if we, instead of returning hundreds of results, we could only return 4, but those 4 results are actually so relevant that they will actually encourage and trigger the sale or the click-through. We call it our jam factory because we actually used a quite well-known theory now around end consumer behavior called the paradox of choice, which pretty much means that at some point, if you start to present too many results to an end consumer in the sales process, you may actually disrupt the intent to buy and actually lower your conversion rate. So what we tried to do is to start to still use the full search technology to provide really alternatives, but start playing with more curated results to be able to power this new type of search paradigm. And at the same time, this paradigm needs to bring instant search to the experience, which is the second very important aspect of this technology jump that we have to make to power flight search. And I would say there are really 2 challenges that we need to face over the next few years in that next cycle of online travel. The first one, really around flight search, we talked about it, is the ability to combine instant search technology, because clearly now to power those new channels, but also to really step up in the user experience, we need to start delivering this instant search capability. But at the same time, we need to combine it with both the personalization need from the end consumer, which really adds the intelligence that we need to build into those search queries, but also the differentiation that the supplier will expect and that you will expect to put into your own sites or into an ad onto one of your marketing channels. And that's a fairly big challenge that we need to address, right? This first paradigm shift to instant and personalized search. And the second challenge is going to be really around the holiday search technology, right? Because clearly people book a flight. It's not only to book a flight, it's to go somewhere. So in most cases, today they still book a flight individually to actually start building their whole trip. But there's clearly a need to start being able to advertise or to present fully bundled products online, which we know very well how to do through the offline channels. But we now need to build the technology and bring the technology to enable those package online search flows. And there's a lot for us to learn in that space, right? Because we have to be able to go from browsing for, let's say, a catalog, which has to be inspirational, all the way down to providing alternative flights, which have to be accurate and also have to be a good deal, all the way down to the booking process. And that adds a couple new steps, let's say, into the online travel experience that we'll have to first build a technology for and then obviously implement on your travel sites and all the way through the marketing channels. So there's still quite a lot of work, obviously, for us to do in that space. And that's really what we try to do, this on the Amadeus side. We try to really understand those trends and build the core technology behind the scenes that will enable those new marketing channels or those new consumer experience on your site. And that's really what we do, try to bring those trends together. We just released actually a new white paper on the 21st century traveler, which tried to really summarize a little bit all of those trends, and obviously we use this as the basis for building our own technology roadmap that will enable those new trends. And just as a conclusion, I want to just throw two questions out at you in the audience, because they are quite fundamental problem statements that we'll have to fix together over the next few years. First is, how do you deal with this dilemma between instant and personalized search, right? Obviously, on one hand, consumer expects instant results. That's really the new paradigms that is set. But at the same time, they expect differentiation and personalization. And clearly, there has to be a very smart way for us to bring the technology together to enable those two fairly contradictory trends. So personalized versus instant, that's probably the first of our big challenge. And the second challenge is typically this link between your inventory and those search platforms. If you also want to start differentiating and personalizing, how to combine the power of the search engine and the advertising engine with the complexity of your own inventory. And that will be interesting debates that we can have over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Many thanks, Sebastien, for your presentation. And we've got some time for questions. Who'd like to ask our